Thank you for joining us here at Victory Church. My name is Becky, and I'm the worship director here, and we pray that this sermon blesses your life today. Don't forget to click and subscribe so you never miss a message.
So great to have all of you here today. My name is Tim Gerdes, and I'm the pastor here at Victory. So if you are new with us today, we're really happy to be here. God's going to do something, and we've been talking through the last few weeks about family baggage and kind of the baggage that we carry in life. And the whole point is to help get us from a big, heavy, overburdening suitcase down to packing light like Jesus would have us live. But it's been a few weeks, and we got a lot of baggage, so we're still in this one. And so today we're going to be talking about conflict resolution and family conflict. And right now, you already know who we're going to be talking about in your life. You already know who it is. You're coming to mind right now. You're like, that person, and it could be a member of your own family, it could be a coworker, it could be a member of the church community, that person that for some reason you're just knocking heads with. And we carry that baggage with us, and one of the ways it really kind of shows up when we carry it is when we see them. If you're out and about, you see them, you're like, I'm supposed to be mad at that person. And so I will adjust my route at Home Depot so I don't have to talk to that person. And it affects everything. How do we travel, how we move, how we see things because of that conflict. When if that conflict were just gone, life would be so much freer. Now, I recently had a conversation with my mom about conflict resolution, because when we've been going now, like I said, the series on family baggage, I call her every week just to kind of make sure, because I'm sharing family baggage. So I ask her, okay, what's going on? What can I share? What are things from childhood that I really don't remember? Can you give me some clue about that? And so last week I was just talking to her. I said, we had a pretty peaceful home life. Not a lot of confrontation, not a lot of conflict. And I said, Mom, so how'd you guys just handle it? Everything was just kind of peaceful like that. And she's like, well, your dad? Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, my dad. Okay, there's the conflict. Your dad, and then, oh, yeah, let's see, he had a kind of a short temper. He could hit the roof pretty fast. I'm like, oh, yeah. And she's like, yeah, you're like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And so now we start putting it together. And what she then would say, she said, you know how your dad would hit the roof and he might say something? She said, a lot of times I didn't like what he said to you guys, to me and my two older sisters. I may have not liked what he said. And then she said, then we would talk about it. But we had talked behind closed doors, so you never really saw it happen, never saw the conversation. I'm like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, do you remember Dad would explode? Yeah. Do you remember how many apologies you got? Oh, yeah, we got a lot of apologies from my dad. She's like, well, where do you think those apologies came from? Okay, and my mom was the one who was in, hey, did you think about this? And then he would come and talk to us and then apologize to things. And one thing I did learn through that way, I learned to apologize a lot. I think you'd agree, Amber, that I apologize pretty quickly for things. I go, I was bad, I exploded. I'm sorry. That's how I handle conflict. I don't know any other way. And so it was hard for me because my mom and dad never talked about, I never saw the process about how they just talked together. I just thought they figured it out, and then there was no conflict. My dad would apologize. My mom was great. And never really saw it modeled in front of us. And so the point of that is that because those conversations happened out of sight, to get to the point of a resolution, I didn't see it all the way through. All I saw was the blow up and I saw the apology, but all the process that happened in between there. And so then just growing up, and you start to have real disagreements on your own, and disagreements can happen in any way, shape, or form. They can happen, obviously they happen in marriage, they happen when you're raising a family and parenting, they happen They happen at work, in ministry. And at some point I realized I just have to learn how to deal with this. And so one of the things you learn, and I thought there should be no conflict ever, and then I got married, all right? And I'm just kidding like this, and this is fun, okay? And I remember one of the, and this is just kidding, but some of you will know exactly what I'm thinking about here, okay? What is this? You know, what's it doing? It's folded, right? It's just folded, that's it, okay? Now, just give me a break. I forgot the transfer from the last service over here didn't help. So then you got this, you fold it, right? And then the proper way apparently is to fold it in half, but I grew up in thirds, right? Okay, I don't know. Which one's the right way, hon? All right, okay, so, but we found out what's the right way of doing things. Because I had the way I folded them up at home. Amber had the way she folded it up at home. And then it's amazing, and you can think about the different things in your life where you have turned towels or something else into a moral argument about what is right and what is wrong. Men, you know, to keep the peace for conflict resolution, whatever she says is right. It's the right way. But it turns into a moral argument when the actual argument is just really, how does it best fit in the cupboard? Because that's how your moms and your dads figured it out. What fits in the cupboard? It could be this, it could be that. But we turn these into moral arguments, and then there's things like that where we fight over things, we have conflict, and then there's other things in this life, just period, that, man, just blows up. Just serious, like, that's fun. But then there's other serious stuff that we can get over this. There's other things that are very hard to get over, and some of you are feeling that right now. But I know that in our relationship, and I'm sure with anybody else, that whoever you're coming into conflict with, everybody has a different way of growing up and dealing with it. Everybody has a different way. So my family had a way of dealing with conflict. Her family has a different way of dealing with conflict. Neither one's necessarily right, neither one's necessarily wrong. They're just different. Some of it's messy, and that can be getting into the wrong part, and that's why you need like a third party to kind of come in, either as a counselor or something like that. And our best one that we found, a third party, is the Bible, Jesus, because we both believe, we both walk that way together, that the Bible is authority. So therefore, we're going to go to the Bible for help with conflict resolution. And so that's going to help us model. And conflict, we know, are the heaviest pieces of conflict that we have in life, is often conflict that's not been handled well, because that stuff lasts for years and even decades. When you're hurt in a conflict, if it's not done well, it impacts everything. The hurts that can happen. And that's one of the heaviest and most common pieces of baggage that we carry. And it shows up everywhere. Parents and kids, spouses, siblings, coworkers, and friends. And if we're not careful, it can do a lot of damage. And it's a lot of weight to carry. So today we're going to find some other things in the suitcase to try to get rid of. Different ways that we handle it poorly, that we need to let go of, and then learn how to repack it in a way that is going to be healthy and healing, and it's going to be not my way, not Amron's way, not your way. It's going to be God's way. And you're going to look at it and you're going to go, wow, that makes sense. And then you go into step 2, the application is going to be hard. But we're going to learn, we'll talk about how to get through that too. So conflict, you think about this. So Ephesians chapter 4 says this. It says, in anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. In your anger, do not sin. Hey, Dante, in your anger, do not sin. All right, thanks, man. All right. Don't sin, don't sin. All right. Sometimes in our anger, we sin, we get loud, We get angry, and the house turns into a volcano where you need a fire extinguisher to put it out. Some of you live like that right now. Some of you grew up like that, where every solution was just basically, I'm going to yell at you, and I'm going to throw out every single bomb I can on you. I'm going to say things that will hurt you, so you'll shut up and let me have my way. So have you grown up like that, where there's exploding and you're lashing out in words that are meant to wound? You know, those moments where you say, well, that happened, 30 years ago, but you're bringing it up now. You forgave me that, but you're bringing it up again. And you just continue to lob it in, because no longer is it anymore about solutions. It's about winning the fight. Who can be louder? Who can do that? Then we have things like, let's see, we got some tape in here. Duct tape, painter's tape, whatever you want it. You just don't talk about it. Stuff your feelings inside. Let it become a bitter, swirling cesspool of poison, right? Let it become that, because you don't want to speak to anything because you're afraid. You don't want to cause chaos. You don't want to cause turmoil, so you just don't say anything about it. That's kind of where I roll, right there. I'm not a confrontational person. If you know me well enough, you know that. But being confrontational doesn't mean you get results. It just means you're confrontational. I don't like to be confrontational, so I'll suck it up and just not say anything. That's not healthy either. It's just kind of stuffing things down, letting bitterness grow. Some of you, we pervert. It's a little bit similar to the fire extinguisher, where you're just saying hurtful things. Others of you, or you grew up in a house that just used a megaphone, and all you did was shout as loud as you possibly can to make sure you were understood. You don't understand me. Let me say it again and again and again and again and again, where at no point do you actually listen to anybody. Because it's important that you're understood, because guess what? You're right. I'm right. You need to understand where you're what? Wrong. So we shout. We try talking over other people instead of understanding them. And then we've got, let me see. Oh, yeah, love. Everybody's, one of my favorites too. Everything's fine. We'll just put on the fake smile and everything's fine. Even though everybody around you knows nothing's fine. But we'll put on the fake smile. We're not fine. Put on the fake smile and pretend everything's okay. And again, stuffing it down, building resentment. This just kind of just builds in you. Whether you're quiet, put on a fake smile, and you're like, why doesn't anybody ask me what the problem is? If they loved me, they would ask me what the problem is, but I'm not going to tell anybody because I'm going to be quiet. They need to figure it out. And then we start building all that stuff. And then, let's see, and then this one. This is a new favorite. Text bubbles. Passive aggressiveness, right? Where we can just lob texts at people when we're angry and mad, and we just light people on fire, don't we? Or we want to, and then we light them on fire, then we erase it. Then we light them on fire again, because we want to reword it so that they get the point. And we wonder then why they get mad at us. But it's not even in texting and messaging and things like that. It's also the part of the passive aggressiveness is we're going to talk to everybody else about it except for the person who did it. What do we call that? Gossip. We gossip because we go around and we look for that first person who, I'm mad at this person. I think that person might be mad at this person. So I'm going to go tell this person about that. And we're going to get all mad together. And Can you believe they did this? Can you believe they did that? Oh man, I can't believe they did that. Oh yeah, you're right to be wrong. That's what we look for. Somebody who just tells us that we're right and to feel our pain. And so we gossip. And there are people out there who love gossip. They don't really care about you. They just want the tea. They just want the information. Ooh, because it's exciting. It's a great story. But does that help anything? Helps nothing. And so what would it look like to pack differently? What would it look like to pack differently? So in Matthew 18, 15 through 17, says this: if your brother or sister sins, go out and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. This is what Jesus is saying. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. He's quoting the Old Testament right there, because this is how you do things. You don't just do one person. If something happened, if they don't recognize it, you just get 2 witnesses and you stop right there. Get 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, then treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Like, kick them out of the community. And he says, truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with them. Interesting, they say, wherever 2 or more gather together, and you have this small little group where you're inviting God into the middle of it, into your conflict. So my wife and I, we can invite God because we understand that. We can invite God into the middle of it. And I just want to point out that it's very interesting. At the very beginning of this section on Matthew 18, this whole thing, it starts with the disciples came up to Jesus and asked this question. They said, who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And this is part of the answer we just read. But it starts with this question of who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Because they're asking him who's right and who's wrong. Who's the rightest? Who's the wrongest? Who is better than? And you start setting up people as being better than. Isn't that what conflict is really kind of about? When we set each other up as I am better than, I am right and you are wrong. We never go into a conflict necessarily thinking that we are wrong. We ask the question, who is the greatest? And Jesus, when he responds to this, he doesn't list a list of qualifications, but he starts with by teaching them about humility, how you care for one another, and then what to do when someone sins against you, when there is conflict. And the steps in Matthew 18 are not just about resolving disagreements so you can move on and walk freely through Home Depot. It's actually about true greatness. True greatness, Jesus says, is shown in how we seek restoration, how we seek to protect unity and reflect the grace of God. Paul would write about this. He has said, our job as Christians is to be the ambassadors. We are representatives of the Lord, of God. We are representatives, and our message is one of reconciliation, to be reconciled to God and to other people. That is who we are. Jesus would say how you love each other. He prayed for the unity of the church, because the unity of the church of the people will mean that you love each other and you forgive each other. That's what greatness is. Sin divides us. And a lot of times we think it's somebody else's sin when we forget that it's part of us too. It divides us, and that's just what it does. I mean, that's the nature of sin. We talk about the devil and what he does, his works and his ways. His whole goal is to divide things, to divide us from God, to separate us from God, and to separate us from one another. And so we make our decisions based on what I want selfishly, so to divide us between us and God and us and others. And then Paul also writes, he says, our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against your wife. It's not against your husband. It's not against your coworker. It's not a guy got in the street who you don't even know his name is, who has a sign in front of his house. Your fight isn't against anybody like that. The fight is not against flesh and blood, but it's against the one who divides. The devil who divides spiritual forces as Jesus would say, the devil just wants to seek and destroy and to take away life. That's all he cares about is destruction. That's all he wants. So this is what we do. This is what Jesus says. He says this is where it matters so much. He says this. Go directly to the person. Just go to the person. Don't gossip. Don't spread. Go directly to the person. And then what happens, hopefully and prayerfully, Jesus says you go directly to that person, you talk to them about what happened, and prayerfully and hopefully they'll go, oh man, I didn't realize that. I didn't know you felt that way. I wish you'd told me sooner. I'm sorry about that. But you also have to be prepared for them to say, well, I hurt you, I'm sorry, but you also hurt me. But then you get past it, you forgive each other because you love each other, and then you move on. Done. You haven't involved anybody else. My dad, it's called conflict resolution. My dad wasn't just hitting the roof all the time, right? But he had this one point. He and my grandmother, and that's like my favorite stories with my grandma. My grandma at the time was 80-something years old, and she was living in assisted living, like an apartment place she had her own apartment, but they had some skilled nursing there. And my dad was responsible to take her to all of her appointments. And so he takes her to appointments, and he goes to they're going to the ear doctor, to where she gets her hearing aids. Now, up to this point, she has been telling everyone what a horrible place the hearing aid office is, how our hearing aids don't work, and telling everybody who cares about hearing aids, right? Her actual constituency, at the dinner tables, at the things, everybody about how horrible this is, and they did that, blah, 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 blah. They go to the office. My dad's had to hear this whole time too. She's telling everybody. They get to the office, here's the hearing aids, she files her complaint, and they're so sweet and nice to her. And then when it really came out, if you're familiar with the phrase, operator error, it's her fault. It was her fault that nothing worked. It was absolutely her fault because if you know my grandma, she doesn't listen. Not just because she can't, because she didn't, even when she could hear, she didn't listen, right? And she's stubborn, and she just knew how the best things in the world works like this. So my dad was next to her. He said, hey, Mom, I think you owe them an apology. What? You owe them an apology. They didn't hear what I said. They didn't hear me complain. They didn't hear what I was saying. No, you owe them an apology. So she was like, I'm sorry. I said all these nasty things about you. And then they got in the car and he said, okay, now you get to go tell all of your friends that you told. Because you just damaged their reputation. Now you got to go back and tell the story. That's your own stupid fault. I don't think he said that, but it's your fault. And tell them, because you just damaged their reputation, you damaged their business, you're damaging because of what you're doing. You're damaging reputation by not going directly to the person. That all gets solved right there when we just go one-on-one. And then she says that all that stuff gets solved and you're back together, everybody's lovely together one another if we just go directly to the person. Now, in the second part, he says, well, if that doesn't work, because sometimes it doesn't work. We know that sometimes it doesn't work. For a variety of reasons, it just doesn't work. Bring someone else along. And not necessarily the person that you think is going to be on your side because we're going to go get them together. We're going to go gang up on them. No, you bring somebody you trust, somebody who's going to talk it out. And I just witnessed this not too long ago. I was just watching, and I witnessed it. I wasn't part of it. Sometimes I do get called into it because of my role here. But I witnessed it, and I watched two people that could not talk to each other because they were so worked up. But that third person said, stop. I don't think you're understanding. Hold on a second. You're saying this, right? Did I say that? Okay. This is what she's saying. Oh, stop. Stop. This is what he's saying. and kind of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. To the end of it, hugs and tears and best friends ever again kind of a thing, when it had gone on for months because they didn't want to say what was wrong. But it required that third person to go in there. And he talks about involving the church. If it doesn't work, then you involve other people, seeking people who have trusted spiritual leadership that you know has got everybody's good intentions and heart and mind. Let's just pull this together. And then he says, and we don't list it here, I think, but the fourth one is like the nuke, man. Okay, if they can't come together after this, and this, and everybody sees it, but they don't listen. Well, if they're not listening, they're about division. So if they're about division, they'd rather be divided than united, then they have no part in the church. And sometimes we think, oh, it's just DEFCON. But guess what? DEFCON whatever, I'm just making up words now. DEFCON 6-1, nuclear bombs. You drop a nuclear bomb. Well, guess what? If that person comes back and says, I'm sorry. Okay, come back. Come back in. Come back and be part of it. And that's what he's talking about. And this isn't a rigid formula. It's just a pathway of restoration, just to get you thinking about things. How do you handle your business? Do you go to the person first? How do you bring somebody along? All this stuff is how do you handle your business? And it's in a way of restoration. It's about pulling it back together, and it's doing everything that you can to pursue peace and preserve the relationship. Now, you may also think to yourself, okay, maybe I need a little bit more. How do I handle this and how do I handle that? And there was a tool that I learned a bunch of years ago that we use somewhat kind of an offshoot of this a little bit, but everybody has their own rules of engagement. Like if you're military, they have your rules of how you go about things. And there's this 10 steps for resolving conflict. I've used this in premarital counseling, but it just works for everything, just about everything. And the first thing of what you do in a very practical way is making sure that you set a time, when you just talk to someone, you want to set a time and place for discussion. You want to set a time and place for discussion, meaning you don't ambush and you be intentional. Like for couples, this is where I'll use this. For a couples thing, it's not, I fall asleep at 10 o'clock. Not by choice, but I just fall asleep no matter what, dead. And if Amon wakes me up at 10:30, I am not ready for this, right? It's not the best time. But she can express her opinion and say, hey, I want to talk about this. Can we talk about it tomorrow? Yeah, we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll set aside the anger. We're not mad at each other. This happened. We still love each other. And that whole thing about don't let the sun go down on your anger. It doesn't say solve the problem. It just says don't go to bed angry. It's sin, it's a problem, it's an issue. You're not going anywhere. You're reaffirming each other. We love each other, not going anywhere. Can we handle this tomorrow? Perfect. And you can do this with anybody. Hey, can we go together for coffee? Because I want to talk about this. If somebody says to me, hey, Tim, I want to talk. Can we talk? And that's all you text me? Shoot, my brain goes crazy when I get that. I hate that because I don't know what it is. So define the problem clearly. What are we going to be talking about? So I know how to prepare my mind for it, because you may have been stewing on this for 2 weeks. This is a surprise to me. So clearly and specifically, stick to one issue at a time. 3, share how you've contributed to the conflict. Not how they've contributed to the conflict, how you've contributed to the conflict. And that one right there sucks so much air out of the room, in the pressure and the feeling when you realize that it's never 100% someone's fault. And I would say to you, find something. 5%, whatever it is, find something that you can say sorry for, because we've all contribute to it. And this helps keep the blaming in check. It opens the door for humility, which is part of the healing process. Because a lot of times we like to, in our conflicts, we always say the problem is all them, but we realize, oh, it's me. Okay, I'm sorry. And that just makes it easier to work together. List specific behaviors that bother you without generalizing. Don't say, you always do this. You always leave your underwear on the floor. Not always. Sometimes. But you know what I mean. You say, you always. We tend to generalize. We say, you always. This is because then it becomes a character thing. You are this. This is who you are. You're ugly, No, it's the person who just did this. So don't be generalizing. Just list specific behaviors that bother you. And this goes for any relationship. I don't know how far you want to go into this with other people, but definitely with your family. Share your honest feelings. Use I feel statements instead of accusations. Because a lot of times we go around going, well, you made me feel this. No, I didn't make you feel anything. You may have responded to something. I didn't mean to, because I wouldn't want to make anybody feel horrible or ugly or anything like that. I'm not going to want to ever make that happen for somebody else. But my words could, because words fumble when they're out of the mouth. How many of you have ever thought of something great to say, only it comes out wrong? It happens, so it just comes out wrong. So don't say, well, you make me feel. No, own your statements, own your feelings. I feel like this when you do this. Okay, then I'm not going to do that again. I won't do that again, or here's why I did that. I'm sorry if it made you feel that way. Here's what I was really thinking about. This is what I wanted to do. Listen actively and repeat what you heard. If you're not familiar with active listening, I found out like they teach this in college. I remember Danny talking to you about that. They're actually teaching that in college about conflict resolution. I was like, what? I never heard of this stuff. Life would have been so much better if I learned about this. And active listening is just simply somebody's talking to you, and instead of thinking about what you're going to say next, you ask questions. Okay, clarifying questions. Okay, you said this. Does this mean this? Because this is what I heard, as I'm sure. And so you're not parroting it back, you're just clarifying. That's all you're doing. And they get a chance to say, well, no, I wasn't saying that. Or they can say, yes, I was saying that. So you listen. That's it. You're not shouting at each other. And then also you know that you'll get a chance. Okay, now it's my turn. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's how I respond. And it just goes back and forth. And I've watched that in my office doing premarital counseling, because you give the exercise. Here you go. And then I've watched it happen. People are like, I get really mad. Whoa. No. Because they take the time just to actively listen. Just that step. And then psh. Own your part. Again, take responsibility. Even if it matters, even if it's small, it matters. Take responsibility. Brainstorm and agree on solutions together. And there are some people that say you need to go to a whiteboard and write some things down and do your brainstorming session. A brainstorming session, all it means, if you know that one of the principles of brainstorming is how many are there bad ideas in brainstorming? There's no bad ideas. And one of the rules is you don't comment on somebody else's idea. That's dumb, because guess what? You say that's dumb, that means you think I'm dumb, we're not talking anymore. Brainstorm together and agree on a solution. And if you're like, we said we would do this together and we haven't done it, well then don't try it again. Do something else. Do something else. But brainstorm, think on solutions. And then number 9, big one, offer forgiveness where needed. Sometimes you didn't do anything. It's just a misunderstanding. But even in misunderstandings, you say you're sorry because I reacted in a way, I thought poorly about you, I didn't understand it. And so offer forgiveness where it's needed. And grace opens up the door to healing. Now, we get to that one. That might be the hardest one. To actually forgive someone. We want to be right. We want somebody to understand, but to forgive and be forgiven. But they did this to me. And part of this conversation goes on. And I love this, as Jesus is talking, remember, who is the greatest? It says, who's the greatest? And then after Jesus says all of this to the disciples, that's when one of the disciples pipes up and he says, so how many times do I need to forgive someone? And then Jesus goes, well, 7 times 70. Basically he's saying as long as it takes. And that's the reaction of the disciples, like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I thought you might meant once, maybe twice. Then I just want to write them out of my life because I like to sit in my anger, walking around Home Depot, making sure I don't like that person. They know it by me avoiding them, even though they'll never see me and don't care about me. I love to live in that. So no, you do it as long as you can. And then he tells a great story, and I'm not going to tell the story, but he basically reminds them, you're a sinner too. You're a sinner too. God forgave you. Jesus died for your sin. Are you greater than Jesus? No, you're not greater than Jesus. So if he's willing to serve, if he's willing to forgive, if he's willing to serve, to do this way, in another place where Jesus says, and no servant is greater than his master. Forgive everybody, everything, all of it. And then a beautiful thing, particularly if this happens with a person that you know and love and walks with the Lord too, you pray together and then you follow up later and say, okay, we thank God for this moment. As you started in prayer, you close in prayer, but you're inviting God into the entire process. And this week, as we're unpacking, as we continue to unpacking our family baggage, here's a specific invitation. Conflict doesn't have to divide your family. It can actually deepen your love if you learn how to fight fair. And what conflict then, think about this, in your life needs to be handled differently? What conversations have you been avoiding that God may be calling you to begin? And probably the best thing to do is then to start praying for that person. Like how Sarah said that last week. Any envy and jealousy is helped destroyed when you start praying for someone. And start praying for them. You pray for God to bless them. You pray for unification. You pray for things. You start praying for them. And it's interesting how a lot of bitterness just kind of starts to melt away. But then you ask the question, well, what if that person doesn't want to work things out? We have that experience. You have people that, I just don't want to get in the room with you. I don't want to talk to you. Maybe you never get a chance. It could be they've shut the door, they've walked away, or sometimes they've gone. They're just legit gone. They've passed away. So how do you do that? Well, Romans 12:18, Paul writes this. He says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, and he's admitting there's going to be times where it's not going to work out beautifully like that. And it's not going to happen. But as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And not this kind of peace. Everything's okay, it's fine. But to be truly at peace with everyone. God has forgiven me. I'm good with him. I can forgive them. I'm good with them. They may not be good with me, but that's okay. I'm going to pray for them. And I look forward to the day when maybe we're good someday. But I can't devote any more of my time or mental space to that. Let it go. Just let it go. So as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Live at peace with everyone. And even if you can't connect with someone, still bring your burden to Jesus. We forgive in faith, even if reconciliation isn't possible right now. We ask God to release the bitterness, to heal the hurt, and to give us peace. And then we remember that question, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? It's not the loudest, it's not the strongest, it's not the person who's the most capable. It's going to be the one who seeks peace. the one who reflects Jesus in the middle of conflict. So if you're a parent, I'm going to tell you, it's because my parents right now, my dad's gone, my mom's still with us. And remember, I didn't see it. Where this whole thing started is I just didn't see it. It happened, but I didn't see it. Talk about it with your kids. Model it for them, but actually talk with them about it. Talk about forgiving. Talk about listening. Talk about addressing things in a godly way. Talk about it and how they can handle it, because there's going to be conflict to the end of time. Until Jesus comes back, there's going to be conflict. So handle it. Teach your kids how to handle it, how to work through it. Because whether you realize it or not, you're teaching them right now. You're teaching them right now. Maybe you need to show something else. Like I said earlier, I didn't really see conflict resolution modeled growing up. So I've had to do stuff to unpack it. Amber and I, her family had a totally different way of doing conflict. And so we had two different ways of doing conflict. You come into conflict. And so working on this together, we both have our own baggage. And everybody we work with, you see the person sitting next to you, everybody has their own baggage. So that's why we need an outside source. Someone wiser than both of us. And that's where we have Jesus. To guide us truly. The first place he says is start at the cross. Remember that you are forgiven. In a few moments, we'll be celebrating communion, and that's a celebration of the fact that he died, his body was broken, his blood was shed for our forgiveness. And we do this together in community because that means I can forgive others. And in the moments, he says, I am with you right here in this moment. So when you don't feel strong enough, I am here with you, and I will be strong enough. He is our model for restoration.